Well, hello there. To give this video a very brief introduction, basically you're going to be following me along as I make an example episode for the general style that I use for the main series of videos on my channel. If you're interested in such things and some of the various tools and I guess thoughts that I have while making an episode, I'd highly recommend giving this video a watch. There will be timestamps in the description and also probably on screen at the moment, but we're going to go from recording the raw footage to then the basics of editing and how I set that all up, to then recording the voiceover and the, I guess, intricacies surrounding that, and eventually the end product. If you want to skip ahead and see the end product and then go back and watch the process of how to make it, that could be one way to view this video, or you could simply watch it in its entirety, and at the end of this video, you'll see the final result. But either way, hopefully you enjoy, I guess, seeing behind the curtain a little bit, seeing some of the various steps that you don't quite appreciate when just viewing the final video. But without further ado, let's kick into it. The first thing you're going to see is me playing live with some live commentary over it, which I apologize, I'm not very used to doing at this point, so it's a little bit rough, but I'm not going to hold you captive any longer, so good luck and enjoy. Alright, so I don't usually live commentary over my videos whenever I'm recording for the series. I'm usually sat here in silence, or now with a second person in the mix communicating with them. The reason that I'm doing so today is to help explain my mindset, my thought process, various reasons that I make decisions and whatnot, because the point of this video is to help showcase how the videos get made, and a very essential part of those videos is how I get into the character, how I decide who they are, what they do, what they think, and those general things. So it might be a little bit of a learning experience for me to try and talk and play at the same time. I might have to actually pause and take a moment to explain certain things versus just playing like a traditional kind of let's play style. Clearly, the first thing that we are looking at, and is one of the most essential parts of the videos and the series and the channel as a whole, is the character creation screen, which I imagine anybody who's familiar with any of the series would know that I very much enjoy being given kind of a random challenge and then making a character out of that. It is going to be a little bit easier or potentially more difficult depending on how it goes with this character specifically, because I'm not planning on taking them for a very long journey. The journey that they're going to go on is just going to be an example for this video, even though I'm going to still try and give them the same attention and thought and whatnot that I have for all of my characters. I know that they kind of have a time limit, so I'm not going to be too concerned over what they are. Let's go ahead and actually generate the character, and then I can kind of showcase the first thing I have to do, which is piece together a, I guess, general concept of somebody, like a human being, based off of a few various traits. I will say there's a lot of modded traits in here, so some of them you might not be familiar with if you're only familiar with Vanilla Zomboid, but let's see what we get. Okay, I kind of like this. We'll go with this. So the occupation is a botanist, and looking over the traits, I can already kind of get a little bit of an idea in my mind for who this person is. The things that stand out to me, obviously there's the ones that come with the botanist occupation, like herbalist. Prepared medical's kind of fun. I would envision it as like them having like kind of traditional herbal-based remedies and whatnot, or like salves or pastes or things of that nature that they would make themselves, though I'm sure the game will spawn me with like the generic prepared medical equipment. It's kind of cool to have that in mind. The swift and shooter trait are pretty interesting because they're kind of outside of the like archetype or stereotype that the botanist would be in, so you could probably do something with that. Mushroom picker like fits perfectly with the botanist. That's fantastic. The sore legs and fearful and disorganized, it's pretty fun. So very briefly, I'll hover over these so you can read them for yourselves. Sore legs basically means that moving around can cause pain, and running will cause pain, so they're not going to be super agile, or maybe they were super agile in the past due to the swift trait, which gives them, I think, 1 light-footed, yeah. So, like, I'm already getting, and this is exactly what I do whenever these things come up, so you're going to have to bear with me that I have to kind of rough it out and then refine the image in my mind. but perhaps they were like a high school or college athlete of some sort. They were on like the track team or something of that nature. And so they have a rather athletic leaning to them, but have suffered some sort of lingering leg injury that has left them less mobile, or only mobile with a certain amount of pain or aches. That's kind of a fun little concept to play around with, and now they've leaned into being a botanist as almost kind of like a secondary occupation or profession or specialization. So that's fun. I kind of like that idea. The fearful trait's fun. I've never played around with it or seen it. Basically, if you get scared, you can scream, which I imagine is just your character shouting out, which could attract a lot of attention with nearby zombies. And then disorganized is kind of just the hindrance, I suppose, that, can kind of be applied to anybody. But yeah, I'm already kind of getting this, ooh, I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but there is that sport, I think it's skiing. It's some sort of like it's not three gun, that's a different sport. I'm gonna have to look this up so I don't sound like an idiot. But it's the event where you like ski like cross country and you stop and you use like a rifle to shoot at some targets and then continue. I'm gonna go with that being like the sport that they were like adamantly into or a big proponent for. And then in some way they got an injury during that time or during training and then became a botanist as kind of a backup, I suppose. And that would help explain the shooter trait that they have. So I think overall, this is a pretty fun build. We don't know like who the person actually is in practice, like the physical person, but I think I'm getting a good idea who they are as a individual, I guess is the way that I would phrase it. The fearful trait is fun. I think the combination of the shooter and the fearful trait is pretty interesting because trying to find a way of describing, how they have some sort of interest or adeptness with shooting without being fearful is fun. But I think I'm ready to actually go into the character. This is kind of the base level that I think I would start out with when recording, because I don't want to go in with too much of an idea, like too firm of an outline, because I want the game to also be able to kind of inform a lot of things as I go. But I also don't want to go in with no outline, because then I'm trying to do a lot of things at once, and then playing the game kind of becomes difficult because I'm trying to characterize so much as I'm going. So I think at this point, I'm still prepared to shift any of the ideas that I have around. Basically, everything I say now is subject to change until the video is like actually put up onto YouTube. I don't know if that's a very common bit of knowledge, but there's a lot of ideas and concepts and plans that I have that get pretty close to being like canon, I guess would be the term for it, and then get altered rather drastically during the editing process. But anyway, I'm gonna stop rambling, even though this is like a fair amount of how the videos start and work. Is literally just this, is just thinking and talking and working through problems. But let's get to who we're actually going to be playing. I'm basically just going to spam random a bunch until I get something that fits. I'm not going to go with a female survivor because I am going to do the voice for whoever we end up with. So it's just Daniel Crawley. Okay, I like it. He looks like a rather strapping young lad. Well, I guess that's an interesting question, is how old is this person? I mean, I would kind of picture them probably pretty fresh out of college, if not a little bit past. I'm not picturing them as like an adult, certainly a younger adult, probably like mid 20s, late 20s, early 30s, somewhere in that range. I know that's a pretty broad range, but yeah, we'll do Daniel Crawley. And I have the random spawn mod on, so there's a lot of randomness that's in there. I've changed a few of the settings, but more or less we're dealing with the Apocalypse preset. We're not dealing with any sort of like sprinters or craziness in that regard, because again, this is supposed to be more of like an example of how I play versus like me actually challenging myself and like trying to make it an interesting experience for the long term. But let's go ahead and spawn Daniel Crawley in and see what happens. And hopefully I don't mess up recording. Oh, I hear a lot already. Okay. I have no idea where we are. I can hear a lot outside. So I'm already kind of getting the idea. Let me pause. Okay. Hopefully I'm not going to pause too much, but again, this is what happens when I'm playing the game, except I have to actually vocalize it versus just thinking through it. I'm in some sort of security office, I think, and I'm hearing a ton outside. So the first thought that pops into my head is that I've like ducked in here, or I've been chased in here, or I've been trapped in here. I guess when I say me, obviously referring to Daniel now at this point. But if I can get out alive, we'll have to piece together what led up to this moment. We are playing the outbreak like time frame. So this is like when society's kind of actively collapsing, the electricity and power and whatnot's still on. So let's actually see what the fuck we're dealing with. Oh fuck, dude. Okay, is a bank? Yes, okay. I do know where I am. Clearly he is on the run. That's a pretty easy thing to establish. Oh, yep, okay, nope. I don't think enough people give enough credit to how terrified survivors would be to deal with zombies in a scenario like this. They would not want to immediately just start stomping their faces in. Are those keys? Those are keys. So I think I'm going to try my best to avoid actually having him just running around, just stomping them. I don't see Daniel as again, he's a very fearful man. So it's this blue car. I think I'm going to try and lead them away as best I can. Hop in, and if it actually works, I like that. I think that's fun, because it does very much seem that his goal is to get out of here. Come on. A little bit of lag. No gas? No gas. Shit. Okay. Nope. I think we're gonna dart off into the woods then. Being a botanist, being more of a... I am in a ton of pain, and I am panicked. I don't know if the panic thing, the trait that I have... Oh, yeah, there's a bunch out here. Actually... Oh, there's a lot more out here than there were in town. That's great. We are out of town, though. I think if I get deep enough into the woods, I'll be okay. And I can work my way back. It is a shame that car did not have gas. Oh, no. Okay, so that answers my question. I have just drawn even more to me. Oh, no. I don't know if Daniel's gonna live, ladies and gentlemen. No, what? Oh god, this is bad. This is bad. Wait, am I doing the Jamie run right now? I know this road. Oh god. I think I'm gonna die here. So this is like where I'm trying to like get in the headset, which is a little bit difficult to both commentate and feel like I am in the character's head, but yeah, obviously with everything going on, this gentleman is terrified. He is screaming, he is running. I think that's probably a great indicator of why he chose to flee the town versus try and like hold a building or make any sort of stand or fight any of the individuals he came into contact with. It is pretty funny that I'm pretty confident we are right where Jamie started, which is ironic, I suppose. I'm wondering at this point he would be willing to take one out. I think I'm gonna go for it, even though... So that would have probably been a big moment for him, assuming this is his first, like, genuine interaction, a fork, nice, with the undead kind of up close and personal. So, like, this is another aspect, is, like, I would try and get a shot for the actual video, since this is, like, a monumental moment for the character. So I'm also trying to keep that in mind as all this is going on. Yeah, I think at this point, I'm pretty confident that he's been pushed to the brink, that he's just kind of, like, manically taking out the ones that are straggling in. Because he knows that he can't run forever, though he does want to run. I don't think he'd start stripping the undead. Oh, that's fun. That's another thing that a lot of people kind of do without thinking, is they start putting on, like, protective layers almost immediately. And when you actually think about it... Oh, these woods suck. I don't imagine a lot of people would be very excited about having to kill an individual and then tear their bloody, ripped, and disgusting clothing off of their rotting corpse. That's one thing I did do in Jamie's run that I kind of regretted. Where are you? There you are. Okay. I do want to like find like a tree branch or something, because having him stomp them to death, that's a very personal like way of going about it, which I don't think fits his attitude right now. This is not a survivor. This is not a man that I would bet on. But that's kind of the fun thing of Zomboid. That's the thing that I really enjoy, is you're playing these individuals that are not built for this, and working with what you have. The one thing that I imagine a few of you are almost kind of wondering about is I'm not exactly worried too much about who he is as a person right now. Like, I'm not making connections to like who his family is, or like where his family is, or who he might have been with. A lot of that kind of comes secondary, because the first episode, especially in this series, when I don't know a whole lot and I'm still getting comfortable with the character, okay, it does provide thirst, nice, that's not incredibly important. Right now it's just getting them established, getting them safe, and kind of putting myself in a position where both I and the character would reasonably be able to start worrying about such things, unless there's something like very specific that kind of comes up with the situation that they spawn into. I would kind of avoid that until later on. I'm gonna actually start medicating my guy, because I think it makes sense. He is like really losing his mind right now. Like the image of like a desperate survivor like downing some like anxiety meds in the middle of the woods is a pretty fun one. I know I saw a gentleman up here. I know that we're getting into the zombie slaying macho man thing here a little bit, but it's gonna be near impossible to have him not interact with the infected until he gets to some sort of safety, because these woods are just a death trap. Another interesting thing that you might be able to see in comparison to the live commentary versus the actual end result is how I try and contextualize this, because right now as I'm playing, I'm not doing a ton of like very deep thinking. I do a lot of that justification kind of after the fact. Oh, there's so many. Why are there so many in this like specific spot? Oh, it's because, oh, okay. Hand fork, hell yeah, okay. I'll take that. Okay, at least he is now armed. That's a big step. I'm gonna try and get into this building killing the least possible, but just with how kind of Zomboid works, that's gonna be difficult. I think I am gonna very quickly more beta blockers. That's kind of a nice touch, that spawning with the medical kit that is now actively helping me deal with one of the negative traits that we had. I'm not too worried about the pain right now, because that's alright. I get in a long run, that would be tragic. But we're not to the point where Daniels has a journal. But I imagine if he did, once we got settled in this shelter and safe, quote unquote, I think that would be kind of the first thought on his mind, is like how insane he got pushed to in just this singular day. Again, we have no idea like who he is or where he comes from or what he's running from. Well, we know what he's running from, but we don't have the details surrounding it, which kind of come after the fact. I very much picture him being the kind of guy that, like, if he got set up in an area like Little Hope, much like Jules, he would not leave it due to the like traits that we've been given. That would be like, already I'm kind of thinking long-term, even though there's no point in doing so. Mint candy, okay. If he was a long-term character, that would be something I would find interesting to grapple with, is having that, that moodle or that trait that perpetually keeps me afraid or, like, worried about such things until I become desensitized, which is a mod that eventually allows you to gain the trait. But yes, if he did find a place that he was comfortable in, it would be fun running into the various reasons for why he would have to leave his little sanctuary, and it would be like a very big deal for him, I imagine, due to, again, the kind of general characterization that we're building with him. But the fun thing about the new character and thinking like the long-term stuff, even though this character isn't going to see the long-term stuff, is the benefits that he does have, like being the botanist, like being able to forage, rather effectively is he could probably turn this location into a somewhat long-term shelter, unlike Jamie, because Jamie did not have the ability to survive out here or to benefit from being kind of isolated in the woods. He very quickly had to shift gears into where can I fight to next to get more food, with the conflict like constantly going on in the background that he didn't want to fight to get more food, but he kind of had to. But yeah, to help like explain away the actual mechanics and the gameplay that's taking place right now, I imagine in the episode a lot of this is going to be conveyed through the like emotion or the vibe of him doing this almost in kind of like a crazed blur. Even though it is taking place over a rather extended period of time, he is like pushed to an extreme right now, and that's what's forcing him to fight for his life, like I imagine most people would in this scenario, and find themselves doing things that they otherwise would not, or they otherwise would be far too afraid to do. Ooh, this is like the first... Oh, there's food in here. Oh, fantastic. I feel like, yeah, he's gonna just panic grab what he can. So I'm definitely gonna take advantage that this is the first safe place that he has been to, and he is going to drink first. That would make the most sense. He is covered in blood, which I think, honestly, is going to be one of his other big concerns. But first, he is going to sit, he is going to relax, and he is going to eat. I think that's a fun visual right there. I'm going to pause. So this is something that happens a lot in the recordings in the series, is I see a visual that I know that I'm going to use for the footage later, and it makes me think a little bit deeper about what's going on. Seeing him covered in blood, eating a burger, I myself, putting myself in that scenario, would immediately feel kind of like ill. Like I would look down at my fingers covered in blood because he has been literally fighting through infected for the last several hours. And I could definitely see how he would go to eat without thinking first, because of like how like scared he is and how hungry he is and how like, you know, obviously crazy the situation is around him. But now that he's seen that, he's looked down and, you know, potentially like a bit of blood or guts or gore has like leaked onto the bun, that would probably prompt him to like want to clean himself. So I think that's a fun little thing, is to go grab the that like soap and cleaning liquid out of like basically just reaction of how disgusting he just found that moment to be. Oh, another thing is I very, very rarely speed up time because I so often need a lot of this footage, or I want to use a lot of this footage to explain certain things taking place. So when you ever see me doing like long montages of like disassembling furniture, doing things of that nature, just keep in mind that I am sitting here watching all of that taking place over an extended period of time. Just to give the room a little bit of like actual appearance, probably start putting down the things that he has picked up, to show that he's like in here and living in here a little bit, and so it doesn't appear that he is just carrying around a ridiculous amount of things. I'm trying to decide whether or not in this scenario he has food, he's safe. This is the weird thing about playing a character that is very deeply afraid, is it's really hard to justify them going out and like doing more than they would want to. I guess it's very difficult to imagine someone who would not go and clear the rest of the building that they are now planning on probably sheltering in for the night. So I think that's going to be my goal. Ooh. Okay, we got a notebook. That's always fun. I think I might actually use that to our advantage. I imagine, again, going off the characterization that we've had for Daniel thus far, he's probably pretty convinced that he's not gonna make it. So this is stuff that I'm doing just for footage's sake. I do have the ability to write in a journal, and while doing so, we are actually going to write in the journal, move it out of here so that later I can crop it out, and this would be Daniel's journal. And now I'm going to pause real quick, even though I'm going to have to use that animation for later. This is really where like the characterization comes through, and it's fun because I don't think in any of my playthroughs thus far I've had a journal in like the first day or the first like bit of footage. Usually that comes later after they've like found a source of food and they become a bit more established and they kind of know what's going on, because we're going to be getting a lot more of like his raw reaction to everything that is occurring. I think we even talked about it earlier in the footage of he would be frantic. And I want that to reflect in the actual writing. Like, I don't want this to be a very calm accounting of, you know, a chain of events. I might stop talking here for a moment as I type this out so that I can really think. It is interesting trying to battle with wanting to explain everything and then actually playing the game. But let's have that go. I did say earlier that I usually don't try and like strongly characterize people or attach certain things to a character earlier on, because I do like things to be rather malleable. But because of the situation I find myself in with Daniel here, I think he would be, again, like under the assumption that he knows he's going to die. Like he's almost kind of assumed that is the outcome no matter what's going to happen, just because of the severity of everything taking place. So his mind is probably drifting to like whatever regrets he's had in life, whatever things he's left unsaid. So I threw just a random name in there, Cynthia. That could be a lover, a sister, his mother, could be basically anybody, just to like, again, give me, the audience, you know, Daniel himself, a glimpse of what was before, the person that was there before, the person that's here now. A lot of the journal's very kind of rambly and disconnected to help reflect his state of mind. And I'll also, this is an interesting like point to make, is a lot of the time when reading the journal entries, I do impart emotion as if the person was like reading it or even like saying it in dialogue, where obviously when reading a journal, you would just be reading a journal and not, I guess, like witness to the various emotions they've had when writing. But I think it's a rather vital step to help actually portray the emotions taking place with these individuals, because otherwise it would be rather dry just to hear them kind of read it out in a monotone way. So his journal is probably going to be read in this like kind of frantic, like energized, like timid, fearful, like worried, almost kind of like pitiful manner is what I'm envisioning. And so that's what I took care to kind of keep in mind when writing. A lot of his sentences don't like really fully come to their conclusion, or he leaves things unsaid because like the thought of even writing them down probably scares him. There's just going to be a lot of themes and actions and decisions based around that fright, that terror, that Daniel's character is very quickly formulating, I suppose. But it is getting late, even though he doesn't have the drowsiness moodle yet. Let me make sure I actually get some clean footage. How bad does this look? It doesn't look too bad. Lie down. Oh, no, I gotta take his shit off. That is one thing that is a staple, I suppose, for the series, is making sure they're not going to sleep with shit hanging off of them. I also do have the comfort mod installed, which makes it so what you go to sleep in matters a fair bit. And I guess that would bring this to a close. I don't know how much of the live recording I'm going to use, like my commentary on it. We'll see. I'll probably jump around and cut and show different things here and there. I feel like I did explain a lot of things I do want to go over in the video, but perhaps I might rephrase them in a much better way. But that's it. That's the, I guess, the insight, a very slim insight into how the recordings actually get done for the series. Again, this isn't the perfect example or the end-all be-all of examples, because it's very different recording footage for the series that is like further down the line versus starting off. Starting off is one of the most interesting times, but also some of the most difficult times, because there's a lot of different questions that have to be answered. There's a lot of different like aspects that are in play. There's a lot of uncertainty with like my decision making, whereas like right now, if I record footage for Grover, I very much know who he is, what his intentions are, what his goals are. He is like a known entity or a known quantity to me. So this is an example of how an episode is made. It hopefully gives you some insight into how I think. I will say that this is not a one-to-one of how playing usually goes, because I did play a little bit faster, a little bit looser. I was also a little bit distracted trying to give my commentary as I was playing, so it's probably not a 100% perfect example of what footage would look like without this edition. But again, it's something. It's better than nothing, and it gives you a better window into how all this back-end stuff works. But that's basically it. I'm gonna stop rambling. Let this footage end off where it is. Recorded for about an hour and a half with a few pauses here and there for writing in the journal and explaining a few things. I would feel like this would be a very fun first episode to put together. After the episode would end, I would be very interested. Like, I'd spend a lot of my like day just going around, you know, doing stuff, waiting for food to heat up, or like waiting for the dog to like do his business or something. I would spend that time thinking about Daniel and like where he's at, where he's going, what I should do, what my options are, what might be the most interesting way to take the character or challenge the character. And that's a lot of the fun part for me, is figuring out these individuals and really getting into their heads. So even though the camera is going to stop rolling here, if this series was to continue, that would be the next step and something that I really enjoy. I do think Daniel would be a fun character to figure out, but of course, he is only here for our little guinea pig at the moment. So anyway, that is it. I don't know where in the video this is going to go, so I won't do an outro, but yeah, that was Daniel Crawley and his little 2-day adventure. Hopefully it's an interesting one. All right, so now we are in DaVinci Resolve, which is the editing software that I use to actually edit all my videos together. There's going to be a lot of like kind of small stuff that I don't know if I want to include every little aspect of what I do and how I do it. There's also a lot of like preset things that I use that I've kind of learned over time. So I'm kind of just going to edit like I normally would and then just commentate as I go, and hopefully that's enough information to kind of just include as we go forward. But yeah, I'm more or less just going to start and then we'll see where it ends up. The first thing obviously is grabbing the footage that we need. Every single Survivor story starts out with our "This is how you die," because of course. And all right. So the iconic intro, the Faye title cards, very classic, very easy, have them preset. And then the footage will go after the fact. You'll also notice it'll take a second for the wavelengths to form, or waveforms to form. I have 3 separate audio tracks, and really I only use one because that's the actual in-game footage or in-game audio. The other audio sources are my microphone and then Discord, which I'll be using for the like behind the scenes part of this video. For the actual video itself, I just remove it. So got to get rid of those, hop that up to there. Another thing is I have a preset. This is for all of the audio channels within the editing software. So it should be under here, preset library. There we go. All right. So basically all that did is there's a lot of different audio things that I do for each channel. Like some are capped at a certain volume. Some are set to audio duck the other audio channels when they have like voice lines or things going through it. I have like a bunch of different channels. I have like 8 or 7 or something like that, which basically allows me to have a different channel for every single use case. It's preset. Don't have to worry about it. So that's super nice. I think I'm just going to hop directly into like the actual story and what's going on versus doing any sort of like introduction. So I'm going to find where that is in the footage, which is pretty far forward. Okay, it's right around here. I'm just going to throw that back to the beginning. All right. Honestly, something I spend the most amount of time doing, and it might surprise a lot of people. I spend a ton of time searching for music. It's probably like maybe 30 or 40% of my editing is trying to find the right footage, or I think I've found the footage, the right music. Sometimes I think I found the right music, and then I get halfway through editing with it, and then I'm like, no, I don't like this music, or it doesn't land right, or I want to use a different one. So that's the first thing, is like establishing the vibe and the energy, and then finding the music that fits, and that's a whole adventure in itself. Obviously, with the scenario that we are starting with him being like cowered in this back security office, It's probably going to be a pretty eerie soundtrack. I'll bring this over real quick. So this is my music folder. It's always kind of growing. The ones out here and just like the generic music folder are unorganized, and I like slowly categorize them depending on what they are. But I have different like moods, like suspense and somber and peaceful and that kind of thing. So that way, when I know I'm looking for a certain mood, I can hop into the folder and then kind of poke around, and they're all generally in the same theme. With this scenario, it's probably going to be something eerie or something suspenseful. I think eerie might be too slow, because as soon as he opens the door and runs, it's going to basically be suspense the entire way. Yeah, as soon as he gets out of the security room and starts running, obviously I think that's going to be a more suspenseful track, because eerie wouldn't quite work. Let me I'll pull up like an example. I'm going to move this back over here. Yeah, so if you're like picturing this music, I'll have to adjust the sound, I'm assuming, while he's like running around and everything's frantic and zombies are chasing him and he's unsure what's going on. This is not the vibe you're looking for. This is a much more like somber, quiet, eerie, slow, kind of chilling music. So that's not what we want. So I'm going to switch over to suspense, and I want something that hopefully starts kind of eerie or kind of just like on edge, and then eventually builds into a like frantic, chasey kind of beat. So I don't know if I have music like that. It's going to take a little bit of searching, but that's like the job, I suppose. No. Already, it's way too punchy right off the bat. I don't like it. No, I think it's a cool beat, but again, I don't think it quite fits what I'm looking for. This could be interesting. If it picks up, it might take a little too long to pick up. I think I actually just used this song for the last episode in season 3. I think I could make it work. Yeah, because like that beat, that that's like when he opens the door and runs. Yeah, for sure. Okay, so now that we think we have the right music, we're going to drag that over, drop that down on one of the tracks. One of the things I try and do for you fine viewers is make sure my audio balancing is relatively okay. It's not always perfect, but I do try my best, I promise. So I just want to make sure it doesn't peak. Yeah, that's going to be too loud. So something like there, probably. Yeah, there we go. That's much better. Okay. So usually I have the music start with the title cards. That's a good beat. Slowly building. I think right where that low, like it's probably like a cello or something in the background comes in, right there. I think that's when I want the screen to come in. So let me find that. Right here, I think is where it's at. Somewhere around there. I do want to find where I actually want his shot to start, which would be here. I know I do pause in this footage at some point, but that should probably be enough. Yeah, because there's not going to be enough time after. I do want him to fade in. Yeah, that's where that cello picks up right there. So I'm going to move that there, roughly find the middle point and connect these. And then let's give it a little fade and see how that plays out. No, I think I much prefer there's like a high pluck string right before it. Yeah, I think right there. Yeah. So what I'm gonna do is, let's see how that looks. Okay, yeah, I like that much better. And so we have all this time here to be doing like dialogue, I think, is the best bet. Okay, I do pause a little early, so we can retime that though. Yeah, but right there is when he opens the door. I'm curious if I can find... So this is the shot of him going to the door. And if I can time opening the door... Pretty close. Right there is where the note hits. And he opens the door right around that frame. How's that look? The issue... So this happens a lot to me where I'm like at a certain level when I start an action or start a scene, and then I zoom out. It's probably not the end of the world. It might not look too bad. But it would be much better to start like here instead. Another thing we could do... Yeah. So let's start getting into moving the footage around. So he pauses before the cut. Yeah, right there. So everything past this is useless to us. I'm going to go ahead and link the clips and then retime it. And that way, the footage has been slowed down. You probably won't even notice because it's only at like, probably like 80% or something. But that gives us the clean visual to use. Yeah. And obviously this shot right here would be incredibly boring just to leave like this, even if there is dialogue playing over it. Another thing I should show right here is this is how I hide my UI. Like obviously you can see the UI in the video footage right now, but I put it at 1.5 zoom, which with the footage recorded at 4K, zoomed in that much, I can still output it at 1440p and have it look good. So that's how I get about not using or having my inventory and my HUD on without it actually looking like it's on. So now you can see, like right here, I'm messing around with that inventory, but you can't see it on the screen at all. What I'm also going to do is start panned out. I'm going to keyframe here at the beginning, and then as the scene progresses, I'm going to zoom in on him. Let's go to like 2. Let's also zoom in up towards like the door, because that would be the main thing he's focusing on. And let's see what that looks like. Yeah, so now you're picturing here like me talking, explaining what's going on. You're hearing the zombies outside. I might even add more sound effects to it. I probably will also remove that zipper sound effect. That's me accessing the first aid kit, and that would distract me, so I'll probably remove that at some point. So that is a really long shot, and there is that piano brick right here. That's probably a better place to cut, and then have the door shut. So let's undo everything we just did. So we're probably going to cut at that last piano. Yeah. Right there. So we don't have to worry about the pausing, because that happens before the pause. If we extend this footage all the way down, yeah, it starts paused. And then it's zoomed out. I think, that might be a stretch. We're going to try something funky here. So this is where I think the footage is usable. So we're going to cut it here, get rid of that. We know that the door opening is lined up with where we want it to be. So we don't want to move the clip at all. I'm going to link it. I'm probably also going to like get rid of this and just move it out of the way real quick. I'm going to want to open up time controls. The footage is really there, is where it's usable. And he's creeping up to the door, and that's where we want full speed to probably kick in. We could honestly even probably make it a little later at another speed point. So the issue that it's probably gonna suck, is this has to get all the way over to here. Ooh, it's close. Let's see how bad it looks. Yeah, that's too slow. Yeah, no, I don't like that at all. Okay, undo all the work we just did. Okay, so I like this cut with the piano. But the issue is the footage is going to be annoying. I do like the slow pan, so we're going to keep that. We'll put that back in. So roughly, again, I think we zoomed into 2. And moved it up towards the door. Yeah, and that's where it cuts, but now we have this long section. Another thing I could try and do, let me see. I could try and move that break earlier. Maybe there? So it plays right about there. Let me see if that works. Yeah, no, that works. I think that fits. I'm gonna close my eyes and listen to it. I do this a lot. Yeah, that works. Okay, I like it. So basically what we did is we just took, music has a lot of like repetitive beats and melodies and whatnot. So usually you can get away, if necessary, taking parts of the song that you either want to come in later or earlier and find like where that cut should go and match it up with the beat. Sometimes it works better than other songs. I use this a lot, especially when there's like a part of a song that I really need to extend like another like 10 or 15 seconds. I will find the repetition in that clip, paste it a couple of times, and then let the song continue as normal. It's probably to the extent that you won't really notice it unless you're looking out for it, but it happens fairly often to try and get these cuts to line up, which is a big part of the video. Okay, so again, that's where our footage starts. It's still too quick, because then he gets to the door a little too soon. But again, we're going to link this. But I think we can slow it down a lot less. Retime controls, right before he opens the door, right around there, we want a speed point. And let's drop this down to like 75. Will that be enough? Not quite, maybe like 50. That might be a little too slow. It's pretty close though, let's see. Also, the cut's a little late. Or early. It's lined up in the timeline, but it feels off when I'm watching. No, that feels off. Why am I... Yeah, it cuts way too early. Let me just try moving it. See if that feels better. Yeah, that feels much better. Honestly, is it better to start it when he runs? I think it might be. Right there, maybe? Instead of when the door opens, that might be better. I'm curious if we can get away with a different speed then. That's pretty close. Let's see how that looks. I like that. Okay. And there's what the next cut's gonna be. Okay, sweet. And so another thing, obviously we haven't edited this clip at all. We'll probably just drop it down to 1, or zoom into 1.5, which is the standard for my footage. Again, you won't see any inventory, but you can see all the action that's going on. That's gonna be another cut. I'm gonna go ahead and default all the rest of the footage to 1.5. It looks really grainy in the preview right now. One thing that I didn't explain is that the footage is recorded in 4K, but to edit it, editing 4K footage is a pain in the ass, and there's a lot of different reasons why. So I have it proxy mediated, which basically means I have it rendered as a different type of like footage or file type that's a lot easier for the editing software to scrub through, and it's a much lower resolution, and so that's why the preview looks really rough. But when the video actually renders out, it'll be using the full resolution footage versus the proxy media that's at a much lower resolution. But it's just to help make editing a lot easier, because otherwise it would take forever to scrub around. Once he gets outside, he isn't really being chased, so I think cutting... I need to probably show... right here. Probably... like, there's not a lot of zombies around, so there's not a lot of stress. But if I cut here... Let's see. Can I move... Let's see. What's down here? There's a couple zombies in the corpse. I don't know. That's a little weak. I could cut when he gets out of the bank, but it's a really quick cut. It's kind of unnecessary. Yeah, and that's also just as boring. He's also super zoomed out. I could just not cut it. Let's see. That might be better. If you're wondering why there's that like skipping in the audio, that's just due to the playback. It's pretty common, so it's not like anything wrong on your end or my end. I'm considering cutting at the end of this little blurb. Like right there, that... right there, I think? How's that gonna look? That's not bad. Actually, it might be better to cut to when he's looking around. Somewhere like there, maybe? Yeah, and then I could even cut right there. Door's locked. Sort of when he's sneaking up. I also need to remember to put this footage into 1.5 because I somehow messed that up. There we go. Let's see how that all looks. I don't know. That seems weird. That cut. Like in isolation, like if you just watch it from here, that seems cool, but watching it in context. It works. Okay, another cut there. I'm so used to there being more zombies that like showing 2 seems really odd. So right around there is when he's locked in. So we'll cut to there, move the footage over. I don't think he's going to access his inventory, so I don't have to worry about that. Something like this. It's a really long, like a wide shot though. I do like this song has like really consistent beats, so the cuts are pretty quick. So now I'm going to slap it back to centered. Ooh, I like there, like zooming over to the other zombies that are behind him. So I'm going to set a keyframe here, set a keyframe here. And we don't want to keyframe, yeah, maybe like that. Because he does end up even like looking over at them too. Probably like that far. And then we'll go ahead and just use a transform tool. How's that look? That looks really funky. If I get rid of this keyframe and wait till he's actually over there, so right around there. Probably this isn't gonna look great. Oh, and the bar is gonna be in the way. No, that's not gonna be worth it. Too much shit in the way. Something like there. Let's see how that looks. That seems a little weird. I think I want more lead up. It is still a weird cut though, but that's where he's like zoomed in the most. No, that feels weird. I could try doing it. The annoying thing, so this happens a lot with my footage. We have him going up the stairs, but then he does turn around, which initially we were going to try and cut, which maybe I still can. Let me try something else. So that is him looking full down. We'll cut to that. Again, we'll move this, but you can't see it because of the hotbar. That's annoying. Why did I not think of that? Let's see how this all looks. I want to put in perspective real quick. That this again is just a rough cut. We are less than a minute into the video. I have now been recording for 35 minutes, and this is literally the entire process. Like, this is how I go through the video and cut my footage and make it presentable. And this is just for the rough cut. I'm not really worried all that much about, like, the mindset of the character or scripting or dialogue or anything of that nature. This is the easy part where it's just like timing things and messing with things and trying to get the right feel. And it takes a long time. I know that, like, someone telling you that their work is like arduous or tedious or whatever is kind of obnoxious, I suppose, but editing, or at least editing to the degree that I do, takes a long time. So hopefully maybe this video helps you appreciate like just how much fine-tuning goes in to the videos and the series and whatnot, because I'm very particular about these kind of things and I really don't like when they don't feel good. So I try my best to make them a good experience to watch. But I'm gonna real quick go back and watch from the beginning, because one thing I find myself doing fairly often is kind of getting like tunnel visioned on like a specific shot or like a cluster of scenes, and I want to make sure that the actual like flow works. So I'm going to go all the way back to the beginning and watch it all the way through, which is only 40 seconds at this point, just to make sure that everything up until this point still feels good. Ugh, I don't know. I'm rewatching these cuts. I think right here, I might want to have him run earlier or later. Yeah, I think I want to move his footage up just a little bit. So let's do like here. See how that looks? Yeah, that's much better. He actually like runs on beat. I think though now that might look weird. Let's see. Yeah. That, like, so showing the zombies in this shot and then cutting to the stairs and then showing them again feels really weird. Yeah, I think I just want to, I've tried so hard to make this shot work. I think I'm just going to get rid of it and cut straight to the door. So there's a very long, you can kind of see in the waveform, right here, there's a very like long repetitive part of the music. And I know there's a section coming up that I actually want that to fit to, which is probably when he sees the key right here, because I want to show that and be able to have the time to have the voiceover uninterrupted during that build. I want to be very wary of where I put my cuts to make that work. So like the door opens, pushes him in, runs down, and so ba-da-dum, that's like where the last cut is, where he would see the keys. This is a potential cut. There I might actually be able to show that he's been trapped in. So like right here. Ugh, that was a bad cut. Why does that not look good? I think I might just want to cut it at the start. Yeah, that feels better. And then right here is where we'll cut to where he sees the key. Right where it stops zooming. We gotta put it back at 1.5. Okay, so I don't linger on the key for long. And I also can't see it. I probably don't have my inventory open right now, so I can probably get away with this. I probably want to zoom in a little more, but then he's like out of frame. Or I can move to the left. God, that's really small. It's gonna be hard to see in footage. So I want to get to like, let's go back to 1.5. The start of the footage. If we're that far forward, we can still see him. Okay, so that's an interesting cut there. I like the extended, like, slow rise in the single shot. It's a little weird when he gets to here, just like stands. Is there a cut there, maybe? Right there, that piano. Honestly, yeah, I'm just gonna cut like this little bit out, see how that looks. That does seem a little better. The issue is I'm trying to figure out, so there's this like, you know, obviously the music cuts out, it fades, you hear like a kind of rising cymbal noise, and it comes in with that like really aggressive. And I like that being the start of him like being chased out of town. Because that also will allow like a lot of fast cuts. So I need to deal with the car scenario before that. Let me see this again. I also think I might start the footage there, but then by around here, maybe moving it back to center. Okay, let's see how that goes. I'm gonna watch it all back to make sure it actually works. Yeah, perfect. Oh, great. That feels so good. Okay, so real quick, again, I'll probably cut this out of like the footage, but I'm gonna go back and watch everything from the beginning to make sure that I like how everything flows, and then start working on like the montage of him running through the woods. Yeah, it does flow. I am recognizing that I'm kind of ending up on editing autopilot, because I have been doing this for like about 2-ish hours now. And when I do that, there are good things and bad things to that. But I start getting very samey. I start like kind of getting in a rut. So I think I'm going to recognize this as a good stopping point. But that's another good example of like why the videos take so long. It's not a matter of just like sitting down here and grinding it out. I want to try and stay as creative as possible. Therefore, like you guys end up with the best video and the best story that I can produce. So that's like another whole little tidbit, is trying to keep myself in that mindset and not get too drained. But this is a pretty good example of what rough cut editing looks like. I could probably even just use this section, like these first 2 hours, as a good example of like what the rough cut looks like. Do the rest without recording, because then I don't have to worry too much about like staying present and trying to remind myself to speak all the time. Because right now, this really is the same process for the rest of the video. I figure out what's going on in the story with the character, what kind of piece of music will fit, what vibe fits, you know, messing with the cuts and the edit a lot until I have the rough cut. And the rough cut is basically kind of the section that we have right here. Yeah, you can see my indicator or my cursor. That is the rough cut, where it's just the shots and the music and the general vibe. And when that's all done, then I go back and I do like scripting and audio work and all that kind of stuff. So I think this is plenty of footage to kind of get across a lot of the different issues that come up when doing the rough cut, when doing the initial editing. And we will get into further, deeper, more interesting parts of it in later parts of this video. I can't speak. I'm so tired. But yeah, I'm going to end this off here. I will come back and edit this as I have time and as I have the willpower, and keep chugging along, and we'll get closer and closer to a final result, which is always the fun part, is seeing it all come together. So, yep, good stuff. All right, so it has come time to actually do the first journal entry for the series, or the little video that I'm making. I like to stop and do this in the middle of the editing process, because then I know how long it is, and I can kind of cut the music around to the length of the journal entry. So that's why I'm stopping and doing it now. I'm about halfway through the video. I also don't think I'm going to do a super, like, strange voice for this character, because he's going to be pretty temporary. I might mess around with the pitch just a little bit to help make the voices a little bit more distinct in the actual recording. I'll also probably read it a little bit more like emotionally. I've mentioned why I do so when I was actually recording, but that also helps separate between narration and the journal itself. So without further ado, I'm going to have a crack at it. It takes me a few times to kind of get into the rhythm, especially when I'm trying to be emotional, I suppose. So we'll see if I get it on the first take, but I probably won't. Those freaks. Those people. They're everywhere. There's no soul in their eyes. There's no words that can stop them. They just keep coming. I'm Daniel Crawley. I'm alive. For now. So I try to do like a little bit of voice flavor. That helps, you know, get some emotion across. If we listen to the playback for a moment. Those freaks. Those people. It sounds pretty good. There's a little bit of background noise just from the various things in my room. So this is a very quick thing that I do. I actually have like a preset for all this, but I'll go through the manual steps for those who are interested. I use Audacity, free program, has a lot of good capabilities to it. You want to get the noise profile and then apply that noise reduction to the entire clip. Usually this is different settings for another project I was working on. So that's usually what I have it set to. So you'll see a lot of the background noise gets dropped. Those freaks. You can also notice this a little bit better by if you watch the actual playback, like level or bar. You can see that it's basically 0 until the audio comes on. People. But this is just like clean audio, so another thing you have to do is normalize it. And that way, generally, it's around the same level throughout. You'll notice that when I start speaking a little bit more heightened and more emotionally in the middle, it's much louder than the beginning. I'll try and actually give you an example. I'll play the beginning and then I'll jump to this middle section. Those freaks. Those people. I didn't want to, but they don't stop. Nothing stops them. So those P's are very pronounced when I'm speaking. And so one thing you'll notice is it gets up into like the red, which is generally where you don't want it to reach, because then it can start like hurting people who are wearing headphones and that kind of thing. Too. But they don't stop. No. So to help combat that, first off, I do a little bit of EQing. Nothing super insane. This is just to help emphasize a little bit of more of the bass in the high end. Again, nothing drastic. It just helps the voice feel a little bit more present. And then finally, I actually limit the entire clip to a certain dB. You'll see that these spikes then go away. And now when I play the beginning, those freaks, those people, I didn't want to, but they don't stop. You see that the bar does not dip into the red and then potentially annoys people who are listening. But that's basically how I record the journal. I did it all in one go, which is nice. I felt pretty good about it. It's a little reminiscent of Jules, but I only have so much range that I can do with my voice without getting cartoonish with it. But there you go. That's more or less how I do journal entries, and I'll stick with it. I don't think it's going to be too big of a deal trying to figure out where the narration stops and the journal starts, because I have a different like inflection in my tone when I'm doing narration. But anyway, that's the journal. I think I have one other journal entry to do, so I'll probably go ahead and do that now so the voice is fresh, but I won't bother recording it since this is a good example of how it all works. So there you go. That's the journal entries. Alrighty, so we have arrived at the part where the rough cut is done, basically all the way from the beginning to the end. I have all the music choices picked out, obviously kind of like knowing where the story is going to go. The only audio I have recorded thus far has been the journal entries, just to make sure they like fit within the video fairly well, or to kind of know the timeline. But now it is time to go back through the footage and actually write out the script for what's going on and adding in the narration. It is kind of neat, and I've played around with this idea a fair amount. I'm always curious if it could potentially work, but you can watch the rough cut all the way through and get a pretty decent idea of like what's going on and what the character might be thinking. And the narration is really only there to help kind of bring that more to the forefront, I suppose. Especially in like the longer opening scenes, especially in this episode that we're working on right now, there's this like 30-ish seconds, probably not even 30 seconds. It's pretty close, 25 seconds-ish. Our character's kind of staring at the door, but this is our time to set up who he is and kind of where he is and what's going on, giving the viewer just like the baseline information necessary so that they can then enjoy the rest of the story. So that's exactly what we're going to do, is we're going to open up. I'm going to actually play from the beginning, so I have a rough idea of like what the mood is, how much time I have, what I want to mention, and that kind of thing. So I'm going to play it real quick. So that's a long period to talk. It's kind of interesting playing around with like how much room you have to narrate with episodes, especially with the kind of cuts that I like to use. So this could be a fairly lengthy section of me describing things. I do have to, I forgot to go back and do this, remove the bag zipping sound, and I'll just replace it with some of the audio from earlier. There we go. So now that's gone. Obviously introducing the character is key, but I leaned into this more season 3. Season 2 with Jules was a little bit more on the nose, and obviously Jamie back in season 1, it was like really blatant. We opened up with the shot of his character, not even like a shot of the actual footage. So I like the direction I'm kind of going, which is being less upfront of like what their traits are and that kind of thing, and allowing those things to kind of be gained or learned as you watch the series pan out. Obviously, with this being only one episode, a lot of those things probably won't be realized, but I do like that style. So first thing we're going to do, probably give out the name so that the audience member can obviously like know who we're referring to when we use the name. I don't think I want to use his full name yet. I want to keep it kind of vague. It's really weird to talk and try and think and type at the same time. I'm so not used to this. I don't want to be on the nose of like explaining all of his backstory like super in depth initially. I want to try and set the scene first, because I'm going to say like a million times because I'm like half typing and half talking. I'm going to say that a million times too. But the scene needs to kind of sink in before I just start dumping information on the audience, I think. That's a better way of going about it. So I think as the narrator, I'm going to focus more on setting the scene and then introduce the character. So as the growls of the undead seep. That's nice, seep. I'm trying to think of like what word to use. I don't want to use fragile. It's not a fragile door. Singular door. This is when I'll probably introduce the name. How's that sound? As the growls of the undead seep through the singular door, Daniel clutches the first aid kit in his hand and tries to steady his racing heart. That's a good first line. I usually break them up into like chunks. That way I can move them around or remove them or add them in when necessary. It allows me to be a little bit more dynamic than having like full paragraphs written out. This is like exactly the style that I write my scripts out in. And I do it very much on the fly. I usually don't go back and rewrite any part of the script once I've made it through the video. And that's why a fair amount of criticism that I think is accurate to levy to like my word choices and the script themselves and the flow of the narration, because it really is mostly just kind of like my stream of consciousness just kind of flung onto a page and then repeated. I will correct like grammatical errors or change lines that are really funky to say, but like when written out they appeared fine. But besides that, usually the script kind of stays the same from when I write it down to when I actually record it. But okay, so that might be a little wordy. Having tried to reach the nearby police station after being chased from his home by a crazed man with a knife. Yeah, it's a little wordy. Having tried to reach the nearby police station after being chased from his home. I think I'm just going to leave it by chased from his home. I can leave it vague. I tried to reach the nearby police station after being chased from his home, comma. The one thing I have to do a ton, and I've gotten a little bit better at it, obviously, as I've been doing this longer, but you refer to the survivor over and over and over and over again. You don't want to use their name every time because that gets repetitive. But I've started using things like the rugged survivor, the scared survivor, the old man, the fragile soul, like you just keep trying to come up with different ways to refer to the character because you refer to them so often and you don't want to just keep using the exact same way of referring to them. So that's something that I try and navigate fairly often. But having to chase from his home, we can throw student in because it's at the beginning of the outbreak. And I feel like it's a lot more prevalent to mention that now and refer to him in that way now versus like if it was a month into the outbreak, it probably would be strange to continue calling him a student. And then obviously after that plays out, the music picks up, so it's probably not a good time for narration. Yeah, I think there's gonna be a lot of early narration here, because so much is being established so quickly and so much has to be explained pretty quickly. So it's probably gonna be more narration here. I am gonna go ahead and turn the recording off, but there is gonna be mention of like why he's going to the car, the different actions he's taking, and eventually I will come back around to actually recording the narration, and that will probably be, I still have to do like audio work, like sound effects and stuff, but this legitimately is how the script gets written, as I go scene by scene, and I do exactly what you just saw and try and make it fit. And then it might not come out exactly the same in the final product because I might have to like move things around or it might be too long, but we will see when we get there. So for now, I will go and work in silence. Alrighty, so we are on the last phase of the actual editing process, which is always exciting. The voiceover is done, the rough cut's done. I've added in the various sound effects that are needed. I've also added in like the little day cards that are necessary for each day. So really, right now, all we have to do is just add in the voiceover, make sure everything works well, and then render it all out. The one thing that the voiceover does automatically with this program, because of the audio channels that I set up that I think I mentioned earlier, is it automatically audio ducks, which means that when the voiceover is going, or when my voice is speaking, the music and the game sound effects will soften or lower in volume. And that way, when I'm speaking, you can tell, much more clear what I'm saying, and then everything else kind of fades away. And then again, automatically, once I'm done speaking, it comes back into focus, and you can hear the music and the game volume at their full volume. So that's something that's already set up because of my presets, and so we should just be able to plug them into Audio 4, and that should all go smoothly. Right here on the left is the actual voiceover, so I'm going to find the clip and actually cut it in and out. So it's going to start here. As the growls of the undead seep through the singular door, Daniel clutches the first aid kit in his hand and tries to steady his racing heart. And it goes out right there. So I just have that section selected now. And if I drag it down into Audio 4, there we go. And we'll probably put it like there as the footage is fading in, and we'll see how that sounds. As the growls of the undead seep through the singular door, Daniel clutches the first aid kit in his hand and tries to steady his racing heart. There we go. And then we're literally just going to do the same thing with the next part. Having tried to reach the nearby police station after being chased from his home, the timid student finds himself trapped in the neighboring bank, now surrounded by the ominous infected. We are running into the issue where my script is longer than the time allotted in the clip. So we're probably going to have to mess around with a lot. Because right here, the ominous. Actually, let's listen and see what this sounds like. Let's go from the very beginning. As the growls of the undead seep through the singular door, Daniel clutches the first aid kit in his hand and tries to steady his racing heart. Having tried to reach the nearby police station after being chased from his home, the timid student finds himself trapped in the neighboring bank, now surrounded by the ominous infected. Honestly, so the next line I think is just pertaining to like him deciding to run. We could probably just leave it out. I'm going to listen to it. Knowing he couldn't shelter in the cramped security room for long, he allows himself a few more quiet breaths before willing his terrified body forward. Yeah, honestly, I think I'm just going to leave that out. So that should start right around this clip. And we'll see how that looks. Racing around to the parking lot in hopes of finding a quick way out of town, Daniel only finds more of the soulless creatures lingering around him. Yep, so that cut seems right. And then I can't remember what the next line pertains to. Feeling an old injury flaring up in his leg, the worried man spots the distant glint of discarded keys on the asphalt, offering him a weak ping of hope. Okay, so there's like no real voiceover until around there, probably. So if we put it here, that might line up pretty well. Let's see. Feeling an old injury flaring up in his leg, the worried man spots the distant glint of discarded keys on the asphalt, offering him a weak ping of hope. Okay, so I think you get the gist. That's basically it. I just go line by line by line and inject it where it's necessary in the video, and a lot of the stuff's already been set up by me to do like the audio ducking and stuff of that nature, and it really is just kind of like fine-tuning and adjusting things as I go to make it worth it. And then as you saw in this example, sometimes lines get cut that I record because they just don't fit, or I find them redundant, or I don't think they fit in like the footage once I actually place them. So that happens a fair amount as well. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and turn the camera off and once again finish this whole process up and then render the video out. And I think that's basically it. So after this, you'll be watching the full video, and I hope you enjoy it. As the growls of the undead seep through the singular door, Daniel clutches the first aid kit in his hand and tries to steady his racing heart. Having tried to reach the nearby police station after being chased from his home, the timid student finds himself trapped in the neighboring bank, now surrounded by the ominous infected. Racing around to the parking lot in hopes of finding a quick way out of town, Daniel only finds more of the soulless creatures lingering around him. Feeling an old injury flaring up in his leg, the worried man spots the distant glint of discarded keys on the asphalt, offering him a weak ping of hope. Engine failing to turn over, his only option now was to run. Feeling the comforting embrace of the woods surround him, as the winded man creates more and more distance from the infected populace, Daniel's terror just begins to soften, as another low growl causes his body to tense. Deciding frantically that running would only draw more, Daniel ignores the mounting pain in his leg as he faces the incoming monster. Heart pounding and skin slick with sweat, as a sensation of ending another's life washes over him, the lost and traumatized young man forces himself to move, hoping to leave this storm of emotions behind him. Breaking the facade of safety as he stumbles across another creature, Daniel once again finds violence overriding his fear. Now covered in the blood of others and flinching at every snapping twig, Daniel's fragile composure is tested again and again. Throat parched as he identifies and forages berries from the wilderness, the stressed and uncomfortable young man is allowed a moment of respite before his desire for shelter stirs him once more. Hoping the growing frequency of infected meant something was nearby, as he suppresses his pain with pills, the desperate survivor aches for something to defend himself, as his shoes are now covered and soaked in crimson. Spotting the shape of a building through the trees, Daniel is once again offered a shred of hope before the forest lets loose a steady trickle of death. finally identifying some sort of lodge or station. As his numbing mind powers through more shambling monsters, the violently shaking man longs for the safety of indoors. Steadily luring out and working through the infected inhabitants of the shelter he so desperately needed, Daniel's hands become slick with blood as his body threatens to reject the contents of his stomach with every swing. Fully removing himself from the threat of death for the first time since his flight, Daniel retreats into the untouched state of the kitchen and desperately pretends that the world hadn't crumbled around him. Recognizing his disgusting state as he manages to keep down his food, the bloodied survivor strives to retain some of his humanity before he begins assessing the situation around him. Finding a modest amount of food and a collection of tools to better defend himself, Daniel's panic finally starts to fade, but refuses to fully wash away as the tireless threat outside his walls plagues his mind. Exploring the other side of the building and discovering a forgotten and empty notebook, a tendril of doom crawls up the isolated man's spine as the reality of his circumstances begin to set in. There was no telling how long he'd retain his sanity. For all he knew, he had already been infected like the others, and as he's faced with his potential mortality, his mind turns to regret and those he might never see again. Those freaks, those people, they're everywhere. There's no soul in their eyes. There's no words that can stop them. They just keep coming. I've killed many. I started to count, but I've lost track. I didn't want to. They don't stop. Nothing stops them. Nothing except... I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. Is this it? Is this how it ends? Cynthia, I'm sorry. I wish I could have seen you one last time. I wish my final words weren't scribbled. I don't want to face anymore. I don't want to wake up in the morning. This is all so fucked. I'm Daniel Crawley. I'm alive. For now. Left drained and exhausted as he closes the notebook, Daniel wanders into the nearby cafeteria in search of one of the benches, gingerly dragging it back into the fragile sanctuary of the kitchen. Disappointed as he wakes up and faces the fact that yesterday wasn't a nightmare, Daniel tenderly returns the bench before attending to his grumbling stomach. Fed and determined to be more proactive, the timid man once again fights his own instincts as he shuffles about his quiet shelter and eyes the lingering dead just outside his door. Holding back the tears growing at the edge of his eyes, Daniel shudders and accepts what he must do.
Retreating back into his walls, bloodied and broken once again, the tormented young man tries to discard the twisted faces of the people he's slain, but his sharp and stubborn mind etches their mindless features into his battered soul. Washing off the stains of his sins as another shred of hope rests in his pocket, Daniel eventually pulls out the walkie-talkie he had discovered amongst the dead and eagerly searches through the various frequencies in hope of another voice. Placing it down in defeat, the rejected survivor distracts himself by dealing with the corpse by the door, already able to smell the rot soaking into the floorboards. Aimless, and wanting to tuck himself even further away from the outside world, Daniel turns his attention to the changing room behind one of the bathrooms, now determined to convert it into a nest in which he can cower in. I'm afraid, and I'm alone. The first I'm used to. The second, it's been too long. I think I'm safe. I fought for it. I've shed blood for it. But I don't know how secure my situation is. I don't know if I should stay or go. I don't know if there are others out there, or if I'm the last sane person on this planet. I can't be. I should go back to West Point, help whoever I can, but that means more of them. I can't. I'm not built for this. No one is built for this. I don't want to leave, so I can't leave. This is my home, maybe my coffin, but surely my prison. I'm safe, but I'm stuck. This can't be real. Daniel Crawley, a human being.